Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. Sunday, and we are doing breaches of the week. This week in data breaches, absolutely insane. We're going to be talking about Google, Salesforce, Air France, Cisco, Pandora, not the music streamer, the jewelry brand, Chanel, and on and on and on, not to mention Columbia University, those poor people. So with that, let's dive in. But first things first, thank you very much to Jacqueline Wolf, Sanders Slidnerink, Gail Whitaker, and Harry Stanton for sending me a good chunk of this information. Please keep sending those tips my way. And with that, let's start in Canada with WestJet. Now, basically, Canada's privacy commissioner has opened an investigation into a cyber attack on WestJet, which saw a quote-unquote malicious actor gain access to the airline systems. The airline also said in a statement that a sophisticated criminal third party was able to gain access to some personal and travel-related data in June of this year. WestJet said that the safety of its airline operations was never under threat. So if you're flying WestJet, you might have had your data exposed, but the planes aren't falling out of the sky. Moving on. Arctic Glacier Premium Ice. Sounds pretty good. Anyway, in July 2025, Arctic Glacier Premium Ice became the victim of a ransomware attack by Qlin, and they've been around for a while. And so on July 22nd, Qlin claimed responsibility for this breach and alleged that they had obtained sensitive information from Arctic Glacier Premium Ice. We're talking names, address, contacts information, dates of birth, social security numbers, driver's license or state IDs, financial or payment information. I have to imagine they're probably a distributor, and most individuals aren't going and getting your customized ice when we all have ice makers. But hey, sounds really like good ice. Moving on, let's head on over to Taiwan and talk about the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC. They are flipping huge. Now, here's what's happening. We basically have fired employees, and TSMC started legal action after internal monitoring exposed a suspected theft of their 2-nanometer chip technology that is protected under Taiwan's national security law. Basically, TSMC is on the cutting edge of chip manufacturing. So this is significant because this manufacturing process is expected to be the foundation for Apple's upcoming A20 chips, which will basically power next year's iPhone 18. So this obviously is a big deal. This incident emerged during a routine internal security monitoring check and then prompted TSMC to immediately dismiss those employees, and obviously now they're being prosecuted, and the prosecutors have confirmed the detention of 3 individuals, including at least one former employee. His surname is Chen, or his surname, her or his surname is Chen, and 2 recent TSMC engineers who were suspected of accessing confidential development and production data tied to those 2-nanometer nodes. So obviously that's a huge thing. TSMC manufactures chips for not just Apple, but also NVIDIA and Qualcomm. So they are a major player in the world on this. Never a good look. Moving on. Let's talk about the National Data Bank for Rheumatic Diseases here in the United States. This investigation, or rather their investigation, confirmed unauthorized access to their network between March 17th through the 22nd of this year. We're talking names, contact information, social security, dates of birth, medical information or history, disability information, mental or physical treatment information, diagnosis, prescriptions, and on and on and on. So if you have rheumatoid or rheumatic diseases, anything, the National Data Bank, you're definitely going to want to check in with them. Moving on, Columbia University. They've obviously been in the news right now for politics and all of that, but let's dive into the nuts and bolts on the cybersecurity side, because we in cybersecurity are agnostic to politics, but we're not immune from it. An unknown threat actor has stolen the sensitive personal, financial, and health information of almost 870,000 Columbia University current and former students and employees after breaching their network back in May. Now, this breach was discovered and reported to law enforcement authorities following an outage that affected some of their systems on June 24th. In the notification letters filed with the Office of Maine's Attorney General on August 7th, the university said that the data breach impacts 868,969 individuals. Employees, applicants, current and former students, and family members as well. Quote, the affected data included your name, date of birth, social security number, as well as any personal information you provided in connection with your application to Columbia or that we collected during your studies if you enrolled. So think demographic data, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, Columbia University appears to be back on their feet, and best of luck to you there. Moving on. Let's go to kidney dialysis company DaVita. If I recall correctly, they are the biggest dialysis firm in the United States. They became aware of a security incident in mid-April, and the attackers behind basically this hit first gained access on March 24th. They stole a whole bunch of information. We're talking names, address, dates of birth, social security numbers, health insurance info, medical info, tax ID numbers, and images of checks made out to the company, aka fraud is on its way. So if you or a loved one are using DaVita for your dialysis, you absolutely want to check in, and I know there are millions of you out there. Moving on, let's head across the pond and let's talk about Air France / KLM. Now you see where the cans came from. Air France KLM was Royal Dutch Airways and Air France. They are now merged into one bigger airline. So Air France KLM announced the other day that threat actors were able to breach customer service platforms and steal personal data. We're talking names, email, phone number, reward program information, recent transactions. KLM obviously has basically reported this to the Dutch Data Protection Authority because, again, Royal Dutch Airways and Air France obviously reporting it to the CNIL in France. Now, the airlines are essentially informing their customers whose data may have been compromised, and they're asking them to remain vigilant of suspicious emails and phone calls. So if you're a frequent flyer on KLM or Air France, heads up to you. Moving on. Real quick update on Oracle, their ever-winding data breach as more and more essentially declare. This past week, Baptist Health South Florida and Glen Falls Hospital both had declared data breaches thanks to the Oracle hit. So best of luck to your patients and employees there. Moving on. Healthcare and Rehabilitation Services of Southeastern Vermont. Now, they announced a data breach that they discovered in December of last year. Unauthorized access to two employee email accounts between December 4th through December 9th of 2024 were there, and we are talking names, dates of birth, social security, financial account numbers, dates of treatment or service, health insurance information, medical history, driver's license numbers, patient numbers, medical record numbers, healthcare billing information, and other medical treatment information. And for the love of God, if you are communicating with your doctor's office, or you are a doctor's office or employed in a doctor's office and you are listening to this, don't use your email for HIPAA compliant personal health information. It's not a good thing. And I understand people can check the box and say, I want to see my stuff via email. Find more secure ways to deliver information to your patients. Moving on. Change Healthcare. I want to give you an update on their data breach because they just provided their final estimate of the numbers of individuals impacted in their February 2024 ransomware attack. They bumped up the total to 192.7 million. So this is obviously a huge thing. It's up from the previous estimate of around 190 million, and it's double from their first estimate of 100 million. So 192.7 million total includes approximately 1.3 million individuals who were notified by the affected covered entities rather than Change Healthcare as well. In other words, they're spidering out as it's a supply chain breach also. So something like half of us or more are now caught up in the Change Healthcare breach. That's awesome. Moving on. Let's talk about jewelry giant Pandora, not the radio streamer. They're notifying customers that attackers broke in and stole some customer data. Quote, only very common types of data were copied by the attackers, specifically name and email address. So, way to mitigate that, guys. We'd like to stress that no passwords, credit card details, or similar confidential data were involved in this incident. We have carried out extensive checks, and to date, we cannot see any evidence of this data having been shared or published. Standard boilerplate stuff, but heads up to you if you like to shop at Pandora. Moving on, Anthem, the second largest health insurance company, and they go by Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Amerigroup, and Health Link. If you recall, like a decade ago, it was one of the worst data breaches of all time. They're back in the news because we're talking about them now. They announced they've been the victim of a, quote, very sophisticated external cyber attack, end quote, on their systems. They've already disclosed names, birthdays, medical IDs, social security, street addresses, email addresses, employment, and income information are caught up in their mess. So heads up to Anthem anything. You're going to get another Change Healthcare, half of us hit. Outstanding. Moving on, Vector Security. Recently, Vector Security reported they suffered a data breach, and they learned that in December of 2024, a unauthorized party accessed and copied data from their network. 30,282 victims were compromised, according to them. Full name, social security number, driver's license number, and financial account information were there. So if you're securing your vectors with Vector Security, you definitely want to check in. Moving on, let's head on back to France and talk about the third largest phone carrier there, Bouygues. And I apologize to my French listeners or viewers for screwing that one up. Anyway, in a statement posted on their website, basically, I'm just going to call them the third largest phone carrier in France, said that the attack allowed the intruders to access the personal information of 6.4 million of their customers. They also said they detected this attack on August 4th, but did not have a time frame for when this was remediated. And they've also said they have 26.9 million customers, meaning only a fraction of their customers were caught up in this. So if you use Bouygues, the third largest phone carrier in France, and I'm not pronouncing that correctly, definitely go ahead and check in, possibly not on your phone. Moving on, let's do our mini segment simply entitled, If You Just Spent Money on Cybersecurity, You Wouldn't Be Getting Sued, You Wouldn't Be Losing Your Reputation, and we sure as heck wouldn't be talking about you. And we only have one for this week, and we're going down under for that. Now, we're going to be talking about Optus. Now, if you remember, this was a massive national data breach for the Australians, and Optus is now being sued for allegedly failing to protect the data, and yeah, it seems like they did, of 9.5 million Aussies. Now, the Australian Information Commissioner announced this past Friday it's launching legal action, and that data breach was back in September of 2022. The Aussie Information Commissioner will argue that Optus failed to adequately manage cybersecurity and information security risks, and quite frankly, I think they've got a pretty good case. So we'll see what happens there, but that was really only your legal action right now that I could find for this week. So best of luck to you Aussies down under, and again, if Optus had just paid for cybersecurity, they wouldn't be getting sued, they wouldn't be getting their reputation ruined, and they sure as heck wouldn't be talking about them right now, right? Moving on into real time again, let's talk about the Alera Group. This is actually an update from their ongoing breach as companies are declaring, and the Ulster County government in the state of New York is now declaring as a result of using Alera, a consultancy. So, best of luck to you if you use Alera as well. And finally, and we have two finalies for you this week. These are interesting. Oh boy. So with that, let's start in the United States and talk about the U.S. federal court system. So the electronic case filing system used by the federal judiciary has been breached in basically a massive cyber intrusion that is believed to have exposed sensitive court data across multiple U.S. states. This is according to two people with knowledge of this incident speaking to Politico, where I'm getting this information. Now, this hack, which had not been previously reported, is feared to have compromised the identities and confidential informants involved in criminal cases at multiple district federal courts. This is according to those two people. So obviously, this is not a good thing. So the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts, which manages the federal court filing system, first determined how serious this issue was around the 4th of July, America's birthday, basically, and here we are. But the office, along with the Justice Department and individual district courts around the country, are still trying to determine the full extent of this incident. It is not immediately clear who is behind this attack, though the nation-state affiliated actors basically take your pick on which one hates us. Essentially, they're widely suspected. We're just not sure who. Criminal organizations may have also been involved. You never know. Or they're cutouts. The Russians use cutouts all the time. So the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts declined to comment to Politico, asked whether it was investigating the incident. The FBI referred basically all news sources to the Justice Department. The Justice Department is not responding to requests for comment, etc., etc. So, as I mentioned, it's not immediately clear how or who these attackers are or how they got in, but the incident has known to have affected the judiciary's federal court case management system, which includes two overlapping components. The first one is case management / electronic case files, known as CM/ECF, which legal professionals use to upload and manage case documents, and then Pacer. That's the system that gives the public limited access to the same data. I oftentimes use Pacer when I am looking up information for exactly this podcast / radio segment / video segment as well. Now, in addition to records on witnesses and defendants cooperating with law enforcement, the filing system includes other sensitive information potentially of interest to foreign attackers or criminals, such as sealed indictments detailing non-public information about alleged crimes and arrests and search warrants that criminal suspects could use to evade capture. Think about it this way. Maybe the Epstein files are in this case system and somebody just got a copy of them. Or, you know what, maybe the Justice Department is going after the mafia and there's a whole bunch of informants, and now a whole bunch of informants are going to get whacked. These are things that are a huge issue. And one of the problems that every government has is protecting those things, protecting innocent witnesses that, let's say, are anonymous due to safety and security. So getting these things hit, getting all of this exposed could be a seriously deadly situation for a lot of people, which is why I'm hoping it's locked down, it's identified, and I'm hoping that the Justice Department will be transparent with us as to what exactly was taken, so those people caught up in this or know that, oh my God, I'm in that court system because I'm testifying like 3 weeks from today or whatever it is, can then start making arrangements accordingly to protect themselves. It's a huge problem. So best of luck to the U.S. federal court system. I'm not a fan of that. Moving on. Our last finally today is on a hacking group known as Shiny Hunters. They've been around since 2020, and they've been targeting some seriously large corporations, but they've been successful for years, but recently they've been hitting Salesforce tenancies, meaning some seriously large corporations, because there's a bazillion companies that use Salesforce, are being targeted, and their Salesforce tenancies are being hit. So here are some of the ones that just came to light in the last week or two. Google. Yes, Google, one of the largest corporations and one of the biggest data miners in the world. They said their Salesforce incident was targeted in June. Google said the attackers obtained contact information and related notes for small and medium businesses from the compromised environment. Essentially, information of potential Google Ads customers basically were caught up in this. So if you've ever tried to do an ad on a Google product like YouTube or Google itself, et cetera, you may be in there if you're a small to mid-sized business. Next up is Chanel. I mentioned them right out of the gate as, one of those things, but they said they basically impacted a U.S. customer-only client care database, aka Salesforce, and exposed names, mailing addresses, emails, phone numbers of individuals who have contacted the Chanel U.S. Client Care Center. Luxury brands have been targeted, and we'll talk about that in a second. On top of it, we've got Cisco, the massive networking giant. They just disclosed a data breach that compromised their basic profile information of users registered on Cisco.com following a successful voice phishing attack targeting one of the company's representatives. And Salesforce, Cisco's tenancy of Salesforce was hit as well. Names, organization names, addresses, Cisco-assigned user IDs, email addresses, phone numbers, and account metadata such as creation dates were all hit. And again, this is one hacking group. They've been busy. I've also talked about past breaches that are now coming to light that they are caught up in this thanks to Shiny Hunters. So Shiny Hunter also hit Adidas, Allianz Life, I talked about that last week. Dior, as in the Louis Vuitton Hennessy that I've been talking about for weeks and weeks and weeks, as various countries' versions of that have been going around. Louis Vuitton is caught in that. And some of the ones I mentioned today, right here on this Breaches of the Week, were also possibly Shiny Hunters, but I put them in the main body of data breaches because we're not sure, but it's looking like Pandora, the jewelry company I mentioned earlier, is in there, as well as Air France/KLM. Shiny Hunters is become incredibly prolific, and we are continuing to see more and more basically hacking groups like them come to fruition, but they have been incredibly prolific. It looks like they've also merged with Scattered Spider, which is another group that employs kids because kids are fearless, don't think they'll be criminally prosecuted, et cetera, et cetera. They are becoming a major dominant player in cybersecurity, specifically the threat side of cybersecurity. And so this is why we need good hygiene, but this is also why we need robust international law enforcement, whether it's Interpol or Interpol working with Europol and CISA and all of the other outfits to basically find these guys and criminally prosecute them. The fear here is that they're going to be sitting inside the border of Russia where they get a free pass. That's what R-Evil had and a whole bunch of others. You could literally go watch old videos of the R-Evil guys just tearing up Red Square in their Lamborghinis while the cops watch. They're untouchable because they're making money for the Russian regime as well as being used as cutouts for Russian intelligence. They're very integrated. Klopp is the same way. So this is a huge problem that we've got. They're going to continue to be prolific, but it really behooves you to have good cyber hygiene. Don't use the same password for all of your websites. Every website should have a unique password. Enable multi-factor authentication and all of that. And even then, this situation really goes above and beyond what you can do to your front-end security as you're seeing logins, because the companies on the back end are getting hit and dumping you out. So do the best you can, but we're all in this boat together, and quite frankly, it ain't the best. Whew. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, please, please attempt to stay private, informed, and secure. Take care.